Hi, welcome. Thanks for clicking on this video. Today I want to have a fun and light look at the girls of the late 90s, early 2000s Nicktoons and how they had a positive influence for girls at the time. Specifically, I'm going to be looking at As Told by Ginger, Rocket Power, and the Wild Thornberrys. Okay, so now that I've introduced my topic and thesis statement, let's get into this. As Told by Ginger chronicles the life of Ginger Foutley, her friends and family during the 3 years of middle school. As Told by Ginger ran for 3 seasons and is one of the only cartoons where the characters age and wear different clothing throughout, making the characters and the show itself feel more real than the average cartoon. In a way, the show is a quiet depiction of the everyday life of suburbia. I mean, of course, half the show is bonkers. Well, anything to do with Ginger's little brother is bonkers. But all in all, the show is about a pretty average girl and her friends as they just navigate life through middle school and growing up. I mean, again, of course, people say she's not an average girl. She has all these interesting hobbies like poetry and music. But I mean, we all had hobbies. Like I was really into making lackluster card pyramids and reading every YA book my local library had because I had a lot of friends and absolutely no free time to invest in pointless things. Anyway, back to my point. Ginger was average and she had these relatable everyday concerns that someone in middle school might have. I mean, I haven't watched the show for years, and one of the episodes I still remember clearly is the Cry Wolf episode where Ginger is teased for not shaving her legs. And I remember when I went through puberty, I suddenly became aware of body hair, and I was weirdly convinced that older girls in school would know I was in year 7 because I didn't have my eyebrows waxed. Which is, a totally logical fear. The issue around shaving her legs is the whole episode. Her mum Lois won't let her shave her legs because based on what I took from the episode, Lois isn't ready for Ginger to grow up. And I mean, I might be simply basing that on my own mother, but I think it applies here too. So in order to get around her mum's rule, Ginger shaves only her ankles and wears 3/4 pants to school to both prove Miranda wrong and not break the rules that her mum set for her. As Told by Ginger has some really important themes, features, I don't know what these are called. But she was being raised by a single working mum who is by far the MVP of the show. Her mum Lois is strong and fierce and she's supportive. Lois is also a unionist, which is not something that can be overstated. For a kids show to have a central character who has an arc where she's making her own cleaning company so that she can continue to protest is powerful. And with me not having seen the show for at least 15 years, I still remember that storyline. The show also talks about money, not in the oh gee, we're rich but bankrupt so we're actually fine kind of way, or the I can't tell my family I'm broke kind of way, but in an honest and realistic way. Take the Nurse Strikes Back episode I just mentioned. In the same episode, Ginger wants to go on a field trip that costs $50, and in order to afford the trip, Ginger helps her mum to clean houses. And she doesn't get all bitchy about it or devise this ridiculous scheme to get out of working. She goes with her mum and cleans houses. And yes, she's embarrassed when she sees people from school at the grocery store, but she still works with her mum. And in the episode, her and her mum end up bonding over everything, and it's really beautiful. Another interesting thing in the show is that this assumed mean girl Courtney doesn't even bully Ginger for being poor, even though Courtney is rich. And in fact, the two become friends, and Courtney is genuinely in awe of Ginger's life and also unnervingly self-aware for a ditzy preteen. I want to just take a very quick moment to appreciate one of Ginger's best friends, Macy. Macy is an underrated character. She's shy and smart and walks to the beat of her own drum. She also has a voice of an 80-year-old with a sinus infection. I think that's a great choice. It's honestly adorable.
I'm supposed to be saving the seat for someone, Miranda. And that someone is you.
Rocket Power was stellar for a bunch of reasons. There's Reggie and Otto's single dad who's doing his best to raise his kids without a mum, and he's completely accepting of who they are. There's the depiction of arguably the coolest sports that I'm way too chicken shit to ever try. And there's Reggie, who I truly aspire to be but will really never become her level of cool. Reggie is the older sister of the Rocket Power group, and she's often depicted as the more level-headed of the group, but not in a wet blanket kind of way, but in a trust me, I'm older, I've tried this shit before kind of way. And while yes, it's cool that Reggie is a surfer skater and all-round extreme sports badass, she's also an aspiring publisher, which is what I really want to talk about. Reggie's zine is part of a subculture that was a movement that gave voices to people in marginalized groups. Reggie uses her zine to voice her opinion and fight for what she thinks is right. The impact of her zine can be seen in the episode Power Girl Surfers, where Reggie uses her zine to catalyze the girl surfers to stand up and prove that they are just as good as, or better than, the boy surfers.
Session protest of the male-dominated surf magazine industry.
The episode ends with her turning down an offer to write a column for a surf magazine in order to keep making her own. Which, like, come on, man. Independent publishing is rad. And I just want to take a second to talk about why her zine is so important. The Riot Girl movement created a space for people existing outside of the cis male norm. It's often associated with women who were both a part of and a rebellion against the male-dominated punk scene. But zines exist to be more than that. They carve out a space for queer culture, for discourse around race and gender, and all the politics that surround all of these things. To really drive the point home, here's two zine creators talking about what zines mean to them. So Nico Snyder from Good Girl Zine Canada says, "For me, women making zines or art or anything else creative is just about taking the media back, challenging the bullshit that goes on in mainstream media, reclaiming the public media space, and above all, expressing ourselves creatively. It's about creating our own space where this creative expression is possible on our own terms." To further that, Isabella Gargiglio states, "Zine making to me means creating our own channel to express just about everything we want to say and were never given a chance. It's so empowering, especially because in a lot of occasions it gives a voice to marginalized groups whose voices and lives have never been considered by mainstream society in general." For Reggie, a zine makes sense. She existed in this male-dominated world and refused to cater to men. She is in all regards, standing up for herself and, as I mentioned before, a badass. Reggie's zine doesn't feel like a plot device like the zine in Moxie. I'm currently realizing I could have done a whole thing on the history of zines and Moxie, and it would have been much more timely video that people might have actually watched. Whatever. I'm sure others have already done that video better than I would have, so let's just move on. Reggie doesn't exist as one single stereotype. She isn't simply a tomboy or a writer, a nerd or a cool kid, a sister or a friend. She's a rounded out character with diverse interests and roles and goals in life. Viewers know who Reggie is and what she is about, and that's probably why girls connected so strongly with her. And I'm sure there were girls who decided to pick up a surfboard or a skateboard because of Reggie. Characters like Reggie are important because they present kids with this different idea of what the role of a girl is. By having her be part of the action or leading episodes rather than have her on the sidelines, commenting on what the boys are doing, kids are able to see a female character kicking butt in a quote-unquote boys' world. The Wild Thornberrys spoke to a generation of girls who were interested in science and nature. People often credit the Wild Thornberrys for catalyzing their interest in the environment, though personally I put that honor with Captain Planet and its short infomercials at the end of every episode.
This place looks terrible. Nothing will grow here.
I know, Kwame. Many forms of mining destroy the land.
But there's something you can do that will stop more of our beautiful Earth from looking like this.
Instead of throwing away your aluminum cans, foil, and other reusable metals, take them to a collection center.
Be a planeteer. Recycle.
We do?
The power is yours!
But yes, this is all true. Eliza Thornberry is important because she's inspirational. I'm sure there is a generation of girls who studied natural sciences because of her, in the same way that there is a generation that flocked to archaeology because of Indiana Jones. But I want to focus not just on Eliza, but the three women in her family, starting with her mother. Look, I know I've already labeled others in this video as this, but I'm going to do it again. By all accounts, Marianne is a badass. The woman is not only fearless, she's often depicted rock climbing, hiking, diving, and most importantly, being the driver, which is not the social norm. She's also a successful director and editor, which in a male-dominated industry is no small feat. Marianne is cool-headed and often the voice of reason, and she's this powerful role model for her daughters. And throughout the show, you see this mother-daughter relationship evolve and change and go through different struggles at different times. A really central theme of the show, she's not this like ancillary character that's just kind of existing on the periphery of the show. She's there and she's present. She saves the day several times. Next in line is Debbie. While Debbie might be written off as a moody teenager, she's also someone who has a point of view and sticks to it. She isn't intimidated by others and knows her shit. Like in the episode Born to be Wild, Debbie quickly shuts down some straight up bullshit from two teenage surfers.
Just be patching my board.
Patch your own board, make your own lunch, and get a life.
And if you ignore their wild accents in this scene, you can see that this is a scene that is important because it's showing young girls that they don't need to pretend that they don't know something in order to cater to another person's ego. People often forget about Debbie when they're talking about the impact of the Wild Thornberrys because she's seen as this pissed off teenager. But come on, if you were her age and you were stuck hanging out with your parents 24/7 and looking after a monkey and a kid with some severe issues that everyone is pretending is normal, you'd be pissed too. Debbie is on the cusp of independence and young adulthood, and she has to navigate this without access to her friends or a semblance of a normal life. So, give the girl a break. Okay, last but not least, there's Eliza. Eliza, of course, is the protagonist of the Wild Thornberrys, and we see everything that occurs in the show through her. At 12 years old, she has placed herself under such immense pressure to protect the environment and its inhabitants. So there's a lot of shenanigans that ensue as a result. But in regards to what I'm talking about, Eliza is important because much like her mum and her sister, she is unapologetically herself. She loves earth sciences, she doesn't care about fashion or fitting in, and her best friend is a chimpanzee, which, no one is questioning that in her family. They don't find it at all weird that this 12-year-old is just hanging out with a chimpanzee all the time. Eliza showed a generation of girls that science can be a girl thing too, and it can be cool. And that asshole kid in your science class that's just a bit too into dissecting the eye of a bull isn't the only representation of a kid that's into science. The women in the Thornberrys family are each unique and with their own rounded out story, personality, and interests. And in a world where it's rare to see 3 women on screen each hold their own and, interact with each other, this is important, and credit goes to the creators that spent time doing this. Cool. Well, that really brings me to the end of this whole shebang. Thanks for listening to me. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, why not, give the video a like or check out my other videos. You could even subscribe if you feel so inclined. Anyway, continue to live your best life, and I'll be back soon to talk into this void. Peace out.